Righty, kia ora koutou, welcome everyone, welcome here Scott, welcome to our second Joint Shareholders Committee meeting. We've opened us up now, but I'm actually going to adjourn and we're just going to take the opportunity to have a brief catch-up just with governance only. So I'll adjourn the meeting now and we'll look to be back sort of 20 past 10 to 10:30, somewhere in around that mark. And then think, Scott, we've sent you another link, Alana, is that right? So you've got another link of you jumping on that one. And we'll see you shortly. Thanks.
Right.
Alrighty, call for apologies. I don't think we have any, do we? No. Any items of urgent business? No, I think most of the things will come out of the discussion around the papers. Minor nature, conflicts of interest. There's no chairperson's report associated with this as yet. Confirmation of minutes. If everyone's comfortable with those minutes, can I have a mover and a seconder for the minutes on the 29th of April? Councillor Wilson, happy to move. Councillor Pye, happy to second. No further discussion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. So we'll go to the first report, which is 7.1, adoption of 2026 meeting schedule. There was one change, I think, plus new dates. So as far as, I'll pass to you, Stephen. Thank you.
Through the chair, we'll take the report as read. The initial report that came to council set out the first initial meeting schedule, but this is to do the rest of 2026. And we're proposing a 6-weekly cycle. Rather than a monthly one, this is to allow some work to happen between meetings, to be honest. So that will mean that the next meeting is the 13th of July after this one, but it will mean the cancellation of the 25th of June meeting.
Awesome, thank you. And I assume that our sort of calendars roughly have been checked around any key local government dates.
Yep, and it's tried to line up with downlands where possible, so that if there's people in there for that anyway, they can come to this meeting.
Yeah, perfect. I think 6 weekly makes sense to everyone. Just give me some nods as far as getting some work done, so we're not just writing reports 2 weeks after you after one meeting, go into the next report cycle. Everyone's pretty comfortable with that? Yeah. Cool, perfect. I'm happy to move that from the chair, and that's agreement to cancel the previous scheduled meeting on the 25th of June. Can I have a second of that? Thank you, Councillor Adams. No further discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried.
Aye.
Brilliant. We go now to water scheme structural decision advice, and I'll pass to you, Elliot.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through the Chair. This paper is on the Downlands Committee, and we've got Councillor Scott here, who's Chair of the Downlands Committee. Essentially, to be frank, I think that we'd be having this paper in front of the Downlands Committee if the meeting cycle had been different. We just need to get on and understand the complexities that arise out of the Downlands arrangement in light of water reform. I think the key thing here is that going forward, we are intending to commission as TDC, as managers of the Downlands Committee, the Downlands scheme, to jointly commission engineering, legal, asset valuation, and accounting advice for that joint committee, the Downlands Joint Committee, to consider and then advise up to their parent councils. So I just want to be clear that that's the decision pathway, and the reason to raise it here at the JSC is timeliness, and also obviously the Joint Water Organisation does have an interest in this and crystallises that process. The issues are a little bit complex, so I'll take the paper as read, but just note that I did struggle with getting my head around this quite different sort of regulatory system, and similarly with the stormwater paper, which we'll come to in a second. So with that sort of brief introduction, take any questions.
If you struggled, it'll be easy for us. Let's go to questions. And Chair Scott, in this regard, would you like to add anything at this stage? Stacey?
I thought you were talking to Scott on the screen. No, apologies. Not at this time. I appreciate the reports that Elliot has circulated to me, and just in conversations directly with Waimeri myself on supporting what is in front of us, and heading to a public meeting as Chair of Downlands tomorrow evening to support conversations with the Downlands portion in Waimeri. So, no, good conversations. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's quite proactive from Waimeri's point of view that they're out there talking to the community around this, which is really helpful. And then one of the conversations that I think needs to be talked about too, do we need to look from this steering committee meeting, steering committee right to Waimate District Council around how they integrate in the shape with reform in the background. Obviously there'll be some decision points, but at the election time you're likely to have really solid direction for amalgamation, and I think that's probably, I'm expecting that might be the stop, go no go for Waimate. But I think at this stage, or for discussion, should we be writing to Waimate now and opening the door, sooner than later, so that they're part of this process.
We've shared this document with Waimate executives, so they've got it.
Yes, the report was shared and initial advice was shared through their CE.
Through the chair, I'm just worried about, as you said.
Bring the mic close to you, Angela, that's all right. No, just bring the mic closer to your, perfect.
Through the chair, I'm very worried about the natural coherence of things and how things happen, and I think writing to Waimate about the reform and talking about water and actually getting a sense of direction around water is going to be really important, because, why would they set up something internally and then down the line in a year's time or, a couple of months' time, they then got to come into an amalgamated entity. So for me, I think we've got to open those discussions.
Councillor Pye.
Forgive me if I've forgotten this since I read it in the weekend, but there didn't seem to be an option where the people connected to Downlands just become customers of the new water organisation. Is that because that is not legally possible? I was confused why, and given exactly what everyone said and what's coming, I too would hate to make something really complicated, spending a whole lot of money on it if it's going to get unwound either through our choice or by government direction.
Yeah, through the chair, fair point. That would be a Section 26 joint water service provider arrangement. The Act, the Local Government Water Services Act 2025 is really bureaucratic about the ways in which territorial authorities can deliver water services, and you either do one or another. You can mix and match, but what you describe would be a joint water service provider arrangement, and that's a different one to what the WSDPs currently utilise, both in Waimate and for the shareholding councils, and therefore would require structural changes anyway, and so you're already having to do the legal process. There may be benefits in that from the point of view of buying more time, but you still have to engage in the legal structural change process at some stage.
Could you not apply to have your water services delivery plan altered to reflect that? Would it still not be possible?
You could, and you would need to work through the issues basically at paragraph 15. So it is, our initial advice now is that it's not a reasonably practical option given the complexities and the lack of benefit, but it is an option that we can keep looking at and exploring, particularly given reform uncertainty. I think when I was initially sort of thinking through how these different options looked, I was describing that more as like a delaying or buying time kind of type of option, but in the end we kind of wanted to force the question as to how do you see this, what's a long-term viable structural option? Yeah.
So effectively you can't just have the customers in Waimate being serviced by the water organisation on a scheme that is only part owned by the water organisation. That's the issue.
That's one of the issues. The other one is that it would be out of the district that the organisation is able, or well, is said to be operating within. There's lots of little annoying bureaucratic aspects that I think would need to be grappled with and changed for that option, and then you wouldn't end up with a long-term option, I guess, is the... you wouldn't end up with a long-term viable option because you'd always have this quite odd arrangement where the water organisation was delivering water services outside of its actual authorised district.
There's actually it's more about the ownership of the assets. The assets are owned by 3 entities. 2 of them are coming together and they'll get transitioned to the water organisation.
Yep.
The remaining ownership needs to be dealt to. Either has to be bought into the water organisation, which means you have to have a shareholding by Waimate for their part of the assets, or we give all the assets are actually put into Waimate's books and is segregated at the border. That's the only 2 options that I can see happening.
Sorry, I'm just trying to think about this in relation to, for example, stormwater, which we're talking about next, which is equally as complicated, where the assets are going to remain within the, like, is there an arrangement similar to the stormwater solution that we can have here? I just, like one of my questions around full integration is if they, transfer their interest and become a third shareholder, how does that look with voting rights if that's the only thing they own a part of, or are you talking about just fully? I just think the 2 options on the table seem quite complicated.
I think that probably is because of my regulatory lens coming at it. So I'm looking at those regulatory aspects, but what the Chief Executive was just referring to is actually the commercial and equities that are held by the different organisations, and resolving that on a viable long-term basis is probably that additional complexity that I don't really bring in, hence why we're looking at particular commercial advice on that.
Whereas stormwater is a complete different, you can't compare the 2. Because stormwater, if we go down that track, is the 2 shareholding councils that still own the assets, that own the water organisation.
But there's obviously an exemption around stormwater, eh?
Yeah, but whereas Waimate is a third party, it's got to be thought through.
At least they want to gift us their assets, which I doubt they do.
It won't do that.
No. Mr. Lester.
Yeah, it was just to expand on Elliot's comments. The complicating one is the proportion of ownership. So Waimate have 14% ownership of the whole scheme. That doesn't relate to any physical asset on paper. So it's not 14% of the network now sits in Waimate. It's not it gets quite complicated in that. In fact, they've got a 14% of the whole scheme. So the asset value is all over the place where it actually sits.
So, sorry, I should know this, but I'm new to the Downland scheme. So you're saying they're in a totally separate set of accounts?
Yes.
So can we not, and this again might not be possible regulatory, set that up as a subsidiary of the water services organisation that is 86% owned by the water services organisation and still 14% owned by Waimate, and so it still carries on as usual, ring fence, separate entity?
Expensive process.
Why is that? Sorry, why is?
Well, legally it would have to be fully formalised, whereas at the moment it's not as formal.
So it's not in a separate entity at the moment. It's just.
It's only it's treated as an entity, but it isn't an entity.
Right.
The technical term, an unincorporated joint venture. Yeah.
What pressure of timing are we under? Obviously, it's 1st of July 27. Just thinking as far as, not guessing what decision they're likely to prefer, but Maddie might prefer something now, but, in November post-election might be quite different, and saying that might be January by the time a government gets stood up. So it might be a bit of lag in there, but I guess what's the point that they can say, actually, yes, we're coming?
But actually, it's in Waimate's hands to actually think about the 2 options, and given where we're heading with local government reform, there's an absolute obvious solution there.
It's 3 options.
But there's one option. There's an obvious one.
Yeah.
But there's only 2 options. There's not 3.
Well, the 3 is make a decision to join our water company.
There's one to join the to join the water organisation as a shareholder for their part of Downlands, or have a bulk service, a bulk.
No, there's two options here, but the third option is then bite the bullet and make a decision to come into the water entity now, rather than...
Okay, well, that's...
And I think they may not be in that decision, that point till after the election, but maybe that's a leader back to them to consider with their thinking. Hopefully that they will be, because we'd hate to... We're incurring legal costs, aren't we? Whichever pathway we go down, which, could be tens of thousands of dollars, when in a few months we're going to undo it. That's my concern, is we're just wasting money. Yeah.
There's a lot of work that will not change the service that customers receive whatsoever. It's really just corporate deck chair rearranging. So yeah, I appreciate the third option you referenced there, but obviously it's not something that officers can advance on the paper.
And as a Downlands user in the Waimete, it is actually just a small portion as well. And you're invoiced everything from Timaru District Council. So you feel like you are receiving your water from Timaru District Council. If you need new connections or do anything, you come into Timaru and you meet with the water team here. So the Waimete portion of the scheme very much comes directly into Timaru District Council for any issues, which is obviously natural, but you also receive invoices from Timaru District Council, not Waimete. So I understand, Councillor Pai, your simplicity, and I am on the same page as you. Why can't we just become customers? But obviously the legal aspect of not being a truly formed entity is the barrier.
When is the next Downlands committee meeting? 30th July.
July.
Okay. So it's still a wee while out. So, I guess the
paper talks to the 31st of October. So everything needs to be in place and sorted or transferred or whatever by 31st of October. This is what the reports talk to.
It would be good to get the decision sooner so you can get the constitution of the water organisation started and moving, and the shareholders' agreements started and moving. So this sort of sits there that it's got to be dealt to.
Yeah, and it's all got to be undone and redone post-reform decisions, which is so as far as action, you're largely wanting to note, but some direction as well.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I actually think this sort of gazumps the Downlands, because this is actually becoming a Waimete decision, really. Waimete's got some big decisions to make, as you say. There's three options: come in or come in partly. So someone's going to have to make that decision. And I think it needs to be done sooner rather than later, so we can get on with the constitution and the shareholders' agreements, because it's just chewing up time.
I do agree, and I think we probably need to formally write to the Waimete Council requesting that they look to make that decision. They'll know about it before because it'll be in the paper, but...
Just remind me the date of the proposals into the Head
9th
Start.
of August.
Yeah, so we will have some clear direction then, won't we?
You'll have direction in September once Cabinet considers the Head Start. Yeah. But however, I'm more confident that actually, Canterbury can present something that will get accepted. And that's the key thing. If it's accepted in September, then you've got that direction. However, a council that, may choose to wait till after election, to make a decision of...
Sorry, just one other question to confuse things. How is this different to like a rural water scheme that we may or may not be proposing to sell privately? Or is it just because it's larger and multi-boundaries and more complex?
I'm going to end up having a guess, so I'm not sure that's the best answer. Yeah.
Trying to put a lens on it and going, if we're doing this over here...
The lens is there is no rural water scheme that bounds three councils.
Yeah, so
There's your answer.
Yeah, and mechanically, the interests of the two shareholding councils will transfer to the water organisation as a matter of the legal mechanics we've signed up to, and I think that's the engine behind it. And I'll just note that the 31st of October 26 is a legal obligation we've imposed on ourselves through the WSDP.
Interesting thing, the entire way through this Three Waters, right from Woodgo to there, Downlands was always seen as an enigma. Right across the country, they knew it.
But it was one of the best examples of councils working together on water. What the future entities would look like. We had it sitting there. So as far as, sorry, is anyone that hasn't spoken that would like to speak? Scott, you're okay there. Sorry, Graham, my apologies.
Oh, no, it's okay. No, it's all right. I just want to say that I just support any effort that can be made to encourage Waimate to make a decision, like in whatever way that can be. The sooner the better. On what I'm listening to here, let's see if that can be progressed as soon as possible, and I'd just certainly support whatever we can do to do that in a friendly manner.
Perfect.
And also the cost of what their decision needs to be thought about, because there will be implications of whatever the decision is.
No, that's 100%. So I think we've got, if we look at the recommendations in front of us, so 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, mostly note. We've sort of talked through 2, which is fine. I think we just add 6 as far as an action to write to the Waimate District Council from the Chair to request, 1, a decision, but to give thought to a joining our water service entity in its entirety based on reform, and if that, and could they give some thought to when they might be able to make a decision on that. So at least we have that clear and in writing, whether that is post-election or whether they're willing to have that conversation earlier. Obviously, if they were to do that, they would have to, through the proper processes, would have to consult. Yeah. Cool. Is everyone comfortable with that? Did you sort of, Megs, get that very, very clear? Yes, of course.
That's probably something for Elliot. If they make that decision after the elections, which will be in October, how does that affect our constitution, which we want to have set up by the 31st of October?
Through the Chair, I think we'll have to gauge the response and then assess the options then, whether or not, in fact, we need to look at options for accommodating those timeframes or not, and the pros and cons of that. There's almost too much flexibility, oddly, in the Local Government Water Services Act. It's just to achieve any of the flexibility requires a very torturous process, yeah.
I do again wonder through, it would be us extending an olive branch, but might be a smart way to do, just so they are incorporated, that we offer them through those documents some seats at the table to have that discussion potentially, but that maybe could be incorporated into the letter. Just in the background, it would be nice for their community effectively to be involved in the discussion, which is going to be their water future. So, yeah. Is there anyone against that? No. Okay, cool. I think we've got some direction there. So I'm happy to move that from the Chair, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, which is the letter action. Can I have a seconder for that? Councillor Wilson, you happy to second that? Any further discussion? If not, I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Thank you, aye. Chair Scott. And obviously there'll be some discussion, so it'll be interesting to understand what they like with the community, so it might be worth incorporating our thinking, if you so wish. Thanks, Stace. See you later. Already moved now to 7.3, which is stormwater options for service delivery.
Right, through the Chair, we have another, essentially a noting report. This discusses a request from the shareholding councils to revisit particularly from Timaru's point of view, the service delivery options for stormwater. I think it's fair to say that the stormwater issue is not a significant issue for Mackenzie, but it is far more so for Timaru. I've set out in the background sort of why we've ended up in a state of some, wanting to challenge our decision, and then hopefully usefully just walk through the complexities of stormwater services and how modular they are and disaggregatable they are. I think the one concept to really latch onto here, which we didn't do when we did the options, was the implications of being a water services provider with responsibility for those services, and particularly the overarching reporting and planning requirements, and the different ways of delivering the service if we wanted to disaggregate that for the purposes of the water organisation, delivering all of that compliance work whilst we retained the asset, which we felt had some merit, but I think as we look more closely at it, it's not exactly clear that that value proposition of retaining the asset or the revenue stream is really coming to the surface. I think when we look at it more and more, my instinct is that we should be transferring as much as we can until we can actually see a benefit in retaining it. And that's kind of the challenge that we need to work through. We've got some draft advice from Rationale, which has been circulated. That's only in its first iteration. And we do need to understand, like I said, some of the implications from asset retention, revenue involvement, and anything further. It's like a layered cake, and we just approached it in a little bit too much of a simplistic way when we're drafting the WSDP. I've noted there the change options, the amendment up until the 4th of October, from memory, and then after that, structural decisions. If we are making other structural decisions, then, there's no reason why you couldn't do them at the same time. And appreciate that it is a little bit of a complex and pretty thick sort of paragraphs there. Happy to take any questions.
And as far as the transfers of assets, I think the other water companies have found that it's going to be an iterative process anyway, isn't it? So you sort of think with stormwater, more logically, it would, if you end up transferring the ownership of assets, then it's not going to all happen on day one anyway. So sort of what's proposed at the moment sort of makes sense. What buys you some time to further understand.
I think the interesting thing of this paper is actually defined what stormwater is for this purpose, and particularly to urban. And so that brings a completely different lens on it. And secondly, with Timaru, once water is moved away, we don't have a lot of water expertise in Timaru left, apart from the very small team we've got on stormwater, which is only, 2 people. So effectively, we're going to probably have to beef up our water team if we kept it ourselves in terms of providing service and assets. We'd have to beef it back up again. And to me, I was going, well, why would we do that? And I think Rationale and Elliott are right on the mark here, that we've got to probably think hard about at whatever point it is that the assets would eventually go over with the service, because it's quite clear to me there's actually, well, when we talk about stormwater, we talk about this. It's actually this. It's the urban part, and that it's ComCom aren't in a position yet to actually regulate, but they will get there, and we've got to actually make sure we get it there without actually, even if we keep it in, we're going to have to set up a completely different ledger for stormwater. It's going to have to be ring fenced, and again you go, really, do we need to do all this? So it needs a bit of thinking.
The missing piece is really what is the value proposition of anything that you retain concretely? What are those assets? What do they give in return for all of this latent involvement and potential responsibility? And I just don't think we have quantified the benefit, because there's obviously a lot of cost.
So this draft recommended option 4, would effectively move the key staff into the water service entity. That's correct, isn't it? Yeah.
Yep. And there's some things I think we want to challenge around revenue retention, involvement in revenue collection. I think that we don't understand the complexities involved in that, but that's something that when we were working that up with Rationale, it was something that we're interested in looking at from a retention point of view, but I still don't think we've zeroed out the actual benefits and costs on that component.
No, I'd be interested from a Timaru point of view if we're how ring-fenced the stormwater revenue is relative to, I'm assuming there needs to be further work.
But yeah, there needs more work, and another paper's going to have to come here to make a definitive decision on whether it is the option of having the water organisation provide this service and the councils continue to own the asset, or bite the bullet and all assets go across. And I think that paper's going to have to come back here and then off to the two councils to make that decision.
Sorry, Andrea, did you have...
I think there is definitely a lot more to do on the assets, because we have a lot of assets that we manage in stormwater that are actually flood management and don't come through, wouldn't transfer under the Water Services Act.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the other one we've got to consider. Yeah, we've got flood retention dams in Geraldine that do well in excess of a 100-year event. That is a flood structure, but it's managed by stormwater. So that would not, to me, and reading through that, would not transfer over to a water because it's not stormwater. And we've got them around Pleasant Point as well. We've also got the contribution from outside urban that is an exacerbator on stormwater. And where does that revenue collection, how does that then work? Because under the Water Services Act, and it's a struggle the whole country's having. It's a really hard question.
Good, we're becoming a unitary because
I was going to say it.
It's easy. Easy. Questions over here at all? No. Scott, have you got anything on stormwater you want to add, mate?
No, not at this stage.
No worries. So obviously draft analysis, we're going to wait for some further work to come through, but still, I mean, it's a good step in the right direction for our understanding, I think, so that's helpful. So as far as recommendation, you just want us to receive this report, consider this report, sorry, we have considered it. I like that as a recommendation. We have considered it and talked about it, but actually haven't done a whole lot with it. But anyway, that's fine. We have considered it. We know that there's further work to be done.
Sorry, the resolution does say provide direction. What direction are officers looking for, or are you comfortable with the conversation?
I guess really if there's any alarm bells, specific areas you want investigated, specific types of advice to accompany a substantive decision paper. Yep. So basically is the direction of travel and the compass of advice looking like what you would be comfortable with making a substantive decision, and if not, then...
Yeah, I think it broadly everyone's comfortable with the direction of where it's heading. Yeah, sort of makes some sense. Righty, recommendation is that the Joint Committee consider this report and accompanying draft analysis and the accompanying report, et cetera, et cetera. Happy to move that, Councillor Fisher. Councillor Adams, yep. No further discussion. If not, I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against?
Aye.
Carried. And then just off to the side, that stormwater is fully exempt from rate capping as well, isn't it? It sits within the water, yeah. But then it's how you define.
It's awkward, to be honest, because it's the rates capping is talked about regulated services, and so the Three Waters is subject to regulation, but ComCom have not made any commitment to actually provide any guidance around regulation of stormwater other than ring fencing.
Yeah, and then the other assets as far as flood protection, I assume, are they exempt or are they incorporated within?
No, they're covered by rates capping because flood isn't under ComCom. And so where do you draw the line between a storm event, stormwater management and flood management? Is it a 5-year event? Is it a 10-year event? Is it a 100-year?
That's a good question.
It's...
Might have to ask a higher power. Okay, we did move that one, so we can move now to 7.4, Constitution and Shareholders Agreement for the water organisation. Thank you, Elliot.
Through the chair, just noting that this recommendation does not require you to consider the paper, but consider it we shall. So this is the first go at the Constitution and Shareholders Agreement. I know that there will be potentially some detailed feedback, and I'm happy to receive that directly from members as we move through the process of finalising these documents. There, as I mentioned before, it's the 31st of October where we have self-imposed an obligation to get this company established, which is when these documents would be required to be completed. Up until that time, we can work through them. It will be the shareholding councils that make the decisions on them. And hopefully I've given you enough of a guide to get through them. They are quite dry commercial documents, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, and I think there was a feeling too that there might be a lot of feedback, so we can sort of feed that in via email, etc., as we work through this. Yeah.
Perhaps if there's any sort of overarching principles or issues at a higher level, that might be a useful way to take the conversation.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So on that note, is there any thinking around themes that, past it, significant that it's missing?
Sorry, maybe just a couple that I'll pick out because, apologies, but I've got a massive amount here. But when it comes to distributions, and I'm in the Constitution, and we are talking about the company must not make any distribution or pay any dividend. And I'm comfortable with the not paying any dividend because I believe if you're, making too much money, you're charging too much for your water, and that should go back to the water users, not to the shareholders. But I don't have a view on this, but I just am advising caution on the use of the word distribution because I see them as two different things. And I just wonder if we want to have a second thought about that.
Thanks, that's useful. I have looked at a couple of the other constitutions and they do adopt some different approaches, so I'll compare those with that in mind.
My other probably main one from memory that I thought would be good to get a view of the room, and forgive me, I can't remember if this is constitutional shareholders agreement, but I'm pretty sure I read a clause that suggested if there is a vacancy, the directors can appoint, and I would have thought that's not what the expectation of this committee is, and I just wanted to make sure that all appointments are by the Joint Shareholder Committee, not by the board. And possibly one other thing, sorry, just... Oh.
Paragraph 17.
Yeah.
The Constitution has been amended to remove.
Well, if that's the case, I think we should simplify both documents, so we're not saying one thing there and then saying it's removed in another document. They should just be as simple as possible. But
that point makes sense, yeah.
Last thing, because it's kind of different to what we're used to at the moment, I think it contemplates the board appointing the chair, and again, I don't have a view on this, which is normal, like after the AGM, the board elect the chair. However, with our current CCOs, and I'm not sure what Mackenzie do, if we have CCOs, we appoint the chair, and I thought that would be a useful discussion on what our expectations are around the chair.
And history through Timaru CCOs, we had Venture Timaru Economic Development were appointing the chair from the board table, whereas we always had the chair of TDHL was always appointed, and we moved it to have consistency that the chair is appointed from the shareholder on both, as opposed to put forward by the board itself. And I guess that would be my preferential, because that's where you've got that control over that key leadership position, in my view, but open to different views. Yeah.
An observation, the shareholders will be, of course, doing the hiring, looking through the skills matrix, so you're probably already going to be thinking about these things at that point in time. So there's a congruence in the shareholders retaining that power, because you'll have been hiring on that basis. So there's just an observation from a process point of view.
No, I think we've got enough nods on that one. Yep.
My other, and then I'll just email the rest of them, but one of the other ones, I'm keen to hear the view of the room. I've never been a fan of the hard and fast 9 years around. I always think, yes, that's best practice, and I agree it's best practice, but I always think you want a escape clause in case there's reasons for, and I know we talked about it with our CCOs, and I lost that battle, but I'll have another crack.
No, I don't disagree. Yeah, I'm saying that the American people are probably comfortable that there's no escape clause and just two terms. Is there any thinking on that? So effectively you're asking, yes, 9 years, but in exceptional circumstances, as considered by the Shareholder Council, you could appoint for a longer period. I think that's the general theme, isn't it?
I was going to say, I may have an example that I can email to you.
Yeah, and I mean, at the point in time in year 10, you might have something significant that experience makes sense, and so, yeah.
I have a change of CEO where you don't want to change of
at the same time.
chair, for example, and if they both go at the same time.
Yeah.
I tend to agree with Michelle because I've had experience with.
So I just bring your microphone.
Sorry, I tend to agree with Michelle. I've had experience in the past where I've had to actually remove directors, and you do want to have that out clause.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've answered what I was going to say, but I support that approach. I think that gives good continuity for good reasons.
Cool, anything further? But otherwise there'll be the opportunity to feed anything back, and then obviously this is an iterative process, but we still want to get it achieved. No, that's all right, we'll come back to you.
One other thing I do think we should, given the previous conversations, I do think we should be having in the back of our mind that this constitution should easily allow others to join, and it might not just be Waimate. We always said, well, Timaru, when we set up this CCO Water Services Organisation, this is probably stage one, and we were wanting others to join, so I think we should have that mindset when we're drafting this.
No, that's a good point, and something that probably just needs to be discreetly set out as advice as to that process, so there's clarity and that we can see it reflected in those foundational documents.
Yeah. I think the general principles of shares, etc., are right in my view to, to allow for others to come in easily and have, equal rights around voting, but appropriate A and B rights. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Sort of where we always sort of wanted to be in or start from, and take it. So it was collaborative. Yeah. Any other comments on that? Otherwise, we can move that forward. Yep. Okay. I'm happy to move that from a chair. Can I have a seconder for that? Yeah. Councillor Pye. Thank you. If there's no further discussion, I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Too many docs. Where are we? PX now, thank you. Alrighty. Okay, so we'll move to PX. I'm going to move that from the chair. Can I have a seconder for that? Thank you. Councillor Adams. If there's any discussion, put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you.